This is purely a journalistic point of view. Nothing more has been said in this video other than that of which has been reported by various media sources and backed up with sources seen at the end of this video.
Professional wrestling, like any melodrama, focuses on extremes, with little room for middle ground. Traditionally, foreign heels are extremists looking to destroy America, democracy, and the nearest babyface they can find. When the WWE introduced Muhammad Hassan, an Arab-American wrestler who was plagued by unjust prejudice, the WWE had an opportunity to explore discrimination in a more objective light. However, Hassan's character was quickly misused, resulting in controversy and eventually abandonment by the WWE. What was supposed to lead to the crowning of the youngest WWE champion in history instead became another blemish on WWE's dubious record when it comes to taste. Join us now as Behind the Titantron looks at Muhammad Hassan, Misunderstood. Wrestling has rarely been known for its subtleties in presenting storylines and characters to draw heat. Ever since wrestling began focusing more on its showmanship than competitive matches, promoters capitalized on fans' emotions and inherent biases. Whether this was presenting an ethnic champion to draw in a demographic or creating a villain out of a despised group, wrestling has exploited quote-unquote the other. Scientists have identified the concept of the other as being the reductive action of labeling a person as someone who belongs to a subordinate social category defined as the other. The practice of othering is the exclusion of persons who do not fit the norm of the social group, which is a version of the self. Professional wrestling was by no means the first organization to capitalize on the other. For example, the late 19th century and early 20th century saw various groups capitalizing on the concept of the Yellow Peril, the idea that Asians were plotting to dominate the world. This translated into draconian anti-immigration laws and racist depictions of Asians in books, film, and radio. Professional wrestling has long capitalized on fans' fear of the other and resentment over prejudice from generations ago. Recall the wrestlers who played heels with German backgrounds, with the wrestlers often portrayed as one goose step away from the Third Reich. As late as the 1980s, heel wrestlers with dubious German backgrounds could be found, and that was the tip of the iceberg. Wrestlers of African and Samoan descent were typically portrayed as having hard heads, while every Asian wrestler was devious, presumably to capitalize on fans who remembered the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. By the 21st century, sensibilities had changes where these prejudices were not so prevalent, even in wrestling. Thus, when the WWE introduced two new characters, there was the hope they might challenge the status quo and make fans reassess their concept of a villain. Mark Kopani was competing in Ojai Valley Wrestling when the WWE approached him about playing an Arab-American wrestler. Kopani was in fact of Italian-American descent and let the WWE know of this. In a 2004 interview, Kopani recalled the events leading up to his being approached about the role. "I thought it was pretty funny actually. Playing an Arab. I'm 100% Italian, from Syracuse, New York. But I was open to it, and I knew it was going to be a big opportunity." Given the sensitive nature of the angle they were about to undertake, the WWE was arguably off to a bad start by casting a non-Arab in an Arab role. Just years later, casting like this would be criticized as whitewashing, a Hollywood practice of casting white actors in traditionally non-white character roles. Kopani was paired with Dara Shawn Davari as Muhammad Hassan and Shawn Davari, two Arab Americans who had experienced prejudice after the backlash from the attacks of 9/11. Hassan and Davari appeared in vignettes where they protested their neighbors and fellow citizens looking at them differently and treating them differently. One segment had Hassan complaining, "This is where I grew up, right next to you. I went to the same schools, ate the same food, watched the same television shows, and there was never any animosity between us. Not since 9/11. 9/11 changed everything for me and my people now. You look at us differently now. Don't say you don't. Be honest. All I want is a chance. Don't judge me because I'm of Arab descent. Judge me because of my talent, my skill. Judge me for me. I just want a chance to represent you in the WWE. The segment started off with Hassan's complaints sounding legitimate. However, as the weeks passed, Hassan became angrier, threatening to beat the prejudice out of others. Fans used to the typical heels from a distant land spouting hate weren't sure of what to make of the vignettes. While logic would suggest both men were justified in their outrage over being unfairly biased, the WWE made it clear they were heels, even if they weren't your traditional foreign heels like the Iron Sheik or Nikolai Volkov. Things began to take shape when Hassan and Daivari began interrupting WWE superstars during their interviews, angering the superstars as well as their fans. Hassan immediately drew controversy when he raised his hand to the air, praising Allah as he did. The WWE had him stop this after complaints from Muslim American groups, but he continued uplifting his hands. The Hassan Daivari team became heat magnets in the WWE. The WWE portrayed the two as despised by everyone in the WWE, to the point that Hassan was targeted by faces and heels alike in the 2005 Royal Rumble, leading to an abrupt elimination. If the WWE wanted to convey the idea these two were outcasts, they were off to a good start. Hassan and Daivari went from interrupting wrestlers to attacking them. At WrestleMania 21, Hassan and Daivari attacked beloved babyface Eugene until Hulk Hogan ran in for the save. The following night on Raw, Hassan and Daivari laid out Shawn Michaels, leading to a Hassan-Michaels match where Daivari helped Hassan score the upset win. Michaels eventually teamed with Hulk Hogan, defeating Hassan and Daivari at May's Backlash pay-per-view. However, Daivari was pinned, which meant Hassan had not been pinned since his debut. The WWE heightened the angle by Hassan complaining he was being discriminated against. The two were building heat, but things were about to rise to the next level when the two were drafted to SmackDown in the summer of 2005. On the 5th of July 2005, the WWE taped SmackDown, including a segment where Muhammad Hassan battled The Undertaker. During the segment, Shawn Daivari summoned 5 masked men, who some allege resembled terrorists, who attacked The Undertaker and carried him to the backstage area. The attack began to blur the line between 2 disgruntled Arab Americans and 2 men colluding with what some saw as terrorists. However, reality was about to make things even more blurred. On the 7th of July 2005, London suffered a terrorist bombing just hours before SmackDown was scheduled to air. Although the WWE had the option to edit out the segment, it chose to air with the following disclaimer, broadcast several times throughout the show. In light of today's tragic events in London, parental discretion is advised in viewing tonight's episode. The segment aired in America, but was edited out of segments in the United Kingdom. As might be expected, the WWE experienced a negative reaction, with critics condemning the airing of the angle as in bad taste, given the circumstances of recent events. The WWE defended its position. In terms of the alleged depiction of a terrorist attack, we all feel bad about the timing of the segment, said WWE spokesman Gary Davis, who said the show wasn't attempting to depict a terrorist attack, although he said he understood how some viewers might construe it as such. People will see what happens this week as the storyline gets straightened out. SmackDown executive producer Kevin Dunn defended the segment, claiming, "We're very proud of our product. We try and be sensitive with everything we portray, but there's got to be protagonists and antagonists on our TV shows. We just happen to reflect the politics of the world sometimes, especially with these Arab American characters." Regardless of how the WWE saw things, UPN felt otherwise, making it clear the WWE needed to get rid of the Muhammad Hassan character. The WWE milked the publicity, with Hassan cutting a promo on the New York Post writer Don Kaplan, criticizing him for assuming the men in ski masks were Arab terrorists. In a 2011 interview, Hassan said, "I went out there with the article in my hand. That was 100% ad-lib on my part. Kaplan had made assumptions that were false, and I called him on it. That was one of my better interviews. Sadly, it was also my last one." Indeed, Hassan did not appear on SmackDown. bowing out at 2005's Great American Bash pay-per-view, where the WWE wrote him out by having The Undertaker deliver the last ride to Hassan, sending him through a ramp and onto the concrete floor. The last ride proved prophetic, as Hassan was sent to developmental, only to be released months later in September 2005. According to Kapani, the WWE wanted to fight against the backlash. Johnny Ace told Sean and I what was going on. Initially, we were going to fight it. We were going to do publicity, talk shows, the promo in the ring, but eventually we realized if we fought it, we still weren't welcome on Spike, which was showing Raw at the time, or UPN, which was showing SmackDown. We knew we'd be very limited. I don't remember exactly how I found it, but within a few weeks of the Undertaker segment, we knew the character could not come back in that way to WWE TV. As fans know, that did not happen, which made things all the more shocking when fans learned big things were planned for Hassan. Years later, it was revealed that the WWE was seriously considering Hassan wrestling Batista at 2005 SummerSlam, defeating the Animal for the World Heavyweight Championship. This would make Hassan the youngest champion in history at the time. Instead, Kopani was sent packing and stopped wrestling. Where did things go wrong? How much was Mark Kopani responsible for the Angle's failure? And what was the WWE's responsibility? Could the Angle have succeeded? There's no question Mark Kopani was thrust into the spotlight at a young age. Historically, wrestlers are usually seasoned before being put into big angles, but that hasn't always been the case. Fans may recall Brock Lesnar's big push or even Braun Strowman's. However, both Lesnar's size and amateur background along with Strowman's size and look made them exceptions. Kopani had nothing going for him other than the WWE's desire to capitalize on what they must have felt was a hot character. Kopani's colleague Shane Helms, aka the Hurricane, discussed whether Kopani was ready in a 2016 article. He was just young, he wasn't ready for that level, but I don't remember us having any bad matches or anything being so horribly wrong that it wasn't fixable. He had potential, he had charisma, he just didn't have the experience. You can't take a high school quarterback and throw him into the NFL and expect him to work wonders. Still, Kopani wasn't without fault and reportedly found himself dragged into wrestlers' court when he complained to Eddie Guerrero about using his finisher, the camel clutch. Guerrero was dismissive, claiming his father Gory Guerrero had invented the move. Wrestlers' court was held and Kopani was ordered to pay for his colleague's bar tab at a high-priced Tokyo hotel, resulting in a bill rumored to be anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000. Reportedly, Kurt Angle egged Kopani to complain to Guerrero, and there were rumors the incident was blown out of proportion by other wrestlers worried about Kopani taking their spot. In a 2016 interview, he discussed his push and the way he looks back on things. There's backlash with anybody new coming up. That's a part of the process. With a character like that starts out hot, it's not usually from the top guys, it's from the mid-card guys that you feel that heat from backstage. The top guys are kinda settled in, comfortable, their spots aren't going anywhere. It's the mid-card guys that feel slighted and overlooked. There was plenty of backlash, and you learn to take it in stride. I think that with this character at this particular time, and this particular push, there was a lot more than you'd see typically. Some of that I'll put on myself as well. I was young, I was overconfident, and I didn't handle things the way I would now. There was a lot of heat associated on stage and off stage with that gimmick. Sometimes I would speak my mind when I shouldn't, and I would keep my mouth shut when I should speak my mind. In hindsight, it's arguable the WWE made a high-stakes bet on the Muhammad Hassan character. Hassan was drawing heat, and the WWE felt that there was enough controversy to get him over as someone the fans would like to see babyfaces chasing for the championship gold. However, once the company faced a backlash from UPN, they likely knew they did not dare face losing one of two of their network outlets. Recall that while the WWE was not in dire financial straits, the company was not experiencing the growth they had expected after bankrupting WCW and ECW in 2001. The loss of a network to air SmackDown would have been problematic. In our Behind the Titantron video on the XFL, we discussed how Vince McMahon refused to give up a half hour on SmackDown's 2-hour time slot in order to air XFL games on UPN. Kopani feels the terror attack destroyed any chance of the character going further. They could have continued the character, They could have got a lot more heat for the character, but I think it came down to monetary. You're talking about sponsors pulling. After the London bombings, if they would have continued the character the same way we'd been using it, I think that would have been a bad move. I think WWE and Vince recognized they were going to lose sponsors if they continued with this. It wasn't like the puppies or Gene Snitsky punting a baby. It wasn't a storyline that was poor taste. Even though Muhammad Hassan wasn't a radicalized fundamentalist, it was a storyline that represented a group that killed innocent people. I think if you step back and look at it about what is right to parody and what is insensitive, it was becoming insensitive given the plight of the United States and Western Europe at this time and now. You can never do it now. It started to change in 2005 as terrorist attacks became more frequent in heavily populated areas and hitting European countries, not just Syria and Iraq and Iran. Just like you couldn't do it now. When they pulled it, I think we were heading into the time when this character and material was too insensitive to continue. In a 2016 interview, Mark Kopani, now working as a school teacher, revealed he hasn't stepped into a ring since his match with The Undertaker at the Great American Bash. I had my last match with The Undertaker in Buffalo. I've not stepped into a ring since then. You don't top that. I made the conscious decision that when I was done with wrestling, I was done with wrestling, and I haven't been back since. Part of how I withdrew from that was the conscious decision to move on with my life, because I think it's very dangerous to spend your present focusing on your past and not your future. I chose to look into the future. Everything I do now is focused on that. I like working with kids and making this state and this country better one kid at a time, to be pie in the sky about it. In 2012, Kopani worked on a graphic novel with Shad Gaspard of Crime Time, titled Assassin and Son. In 2016, Kopani joined a number of wrestlers involved in a class action lawsuit against the WWE, alleging they incurred traumatic brain injuries and the WWE did not reveal the risk of injury. Sean Daivari continued working in the WWE until 2007, both as a manager and a wrestler. In a 2016 interview, Daivari discussed Hassan being written off and how. Me and Mark were both kind of blindsided by it. The deal was so hot. We were one of the best segments on the show, in main events, and a lot of people wanted to work with us because we were so hot. Vince pulled us aside and said he was going to pull the plug on it. We're like, you're just going to kill it? I thought they were just going to pull us off TV and maybe bring us back in a while, but he was adamant that the Muhammad Hassan character was dead and it wasn't coming back. He mentioned repackaging us and possibly bringing us back down the road, and that's when Mark wasn't on board that. He knew the money that Muhammad Hassan could make and draw was still there and a great thing. I feel like he felt like he wasn't going to come back and do something less than what he was doing before. It's really easy to repackage failures, but not successes. Daivari stayed in the WWE until his 2007 release, working the independent circuit, TNA, World Elite, and Ring of Honor. Daivari returned to the WWE briefly in 2011 and was seen in the first season of Lucha Underground. In 2016, Daivari joined WWE colleague Ken Anderson in opening a wrestling school, The Academy, School of Professional Wrestling. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Behind the Titantron. This one will be the last one of 2017. Be sure to vote in the top right corner of what you would like to see as the first episode of 2018. And with that, don't forget to subscribe, share the video, like the video, and comment down below. And I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.